As you settle into the night, take a moment to notice how your body begins to soften against the surface beneath you. Your head resting gently, your shoulders loosening, your breath finding a natural rhythm that asks for nothing more than quiet ease. And as you breathe this way, you may sense the room around you, familiar and safe, holding you with a steady presence. The faint glow of lamplight or the softened dark of a calm evening wrapping gently around your thoughts, reminding you that here, in this space, there is nothing you need to solve, nothing you need to chase, only the comfort of letting go, step by step, moment by moment, into stillness. With this soft beginning, imagine your thoughts drifting outward, like slow ripples moving across water after a single pebble lands, the circles widening, slowing, and finally fading into calm expanses and into that quiet. We introduce a picture that would guide tonight's story, the image of a ship that has come to rest, a vessel long ago finding its place beneath the sea, now no longer in motion, no longer subject to waves or winds, but settled, embraced by the deep. This shipwreck, once a part of bustling life above, is now an element of peaceful stillness below, resting gently on the sandy floor, its wooden beams softened by years, its lines blurred by the flowing water, a quiet presence in a quiet world. And this is the place we will linger together, not in urgency or noise, but in a slow, steady pace that welcomes rest. Everything is steady tonight. As we drift deeper into this story, picture the sea itself as a gentle companion, stretching out in every direction with a calm patience that never hurries, never demands, only moves in slow rhythms that soothe and steady. And within this wide space lies the resting shape of the shipwreck, a vessel once alive with voices and movement, now embraced fully by silence, surrounded by the tender hush of water. You might imagine how the light falls through the surface, softened into beams that lose their sharp edges as they descend, becoming ribbons of pale gold and blue, touching gently across the wooden frame, across quiet decks that no longer bear footsteps, only the soft brush of currents. The ship, resting here, seems less like an artifact and more like part of the sea itself, a natural feature now, almost as if it had always belonged beneath the waves. And in thinking of it this way, you may feel how time itself slows down, how the years gather quietly without fanfare, and how stillness becomes the strongest presence. The water holds this place in a soft embrace, filling every space with calm, creating a world where even shadows drift slowly, even sand settles without haste. In your imagination, you may wander gently along its outline, tracing with your mind the softened wood, the rounded edges, the way sea life has found gentle homes here, turning every beam and every hollow into a resting space. The shipwreck no longer tells a story of travel or work. It now offers the story of rest, a place where the energy of motion has become the peace of stillness. And the longer you think of it, the more it feels like an invitation for your own body to do the same, to let your breath ease, your muscles soften, your thoughts spread out slowly like the widening light. Everything is steady tonight, and as we continue, this image of calm undersea rest will guide you, returning again and again in gentle waves, just as the ocean itself returns in soft, rhythmic movement, lapping, pausing, always steady, always quiet, carrying you further into rest. In this wide embrace, there is room for stillness, for reflection, for drifting without direction, and in allowing yourself to imagine the ship's quiet presence, you also allow your own thoughts to find a calm surface, a soft place to pause, a way of being held by the deep hush of the night. Everything is steady tonight. The shipwreck, sleeping quietly under the sea, is more than an image of wood and water. It is an invitation into calm, and we will linger here together, circling the idea slowly, gently, until its stillness becomes part of your own. Imagine a vessel at rest on the ocean floor, the timbers softened by time, the lines rounded by currents, no longer sharp, no longer strained, only shapes that belong to the deep. And as you picture this, let your breath take on the same unhurried rhythm, expanding like a wave, settling like the tide, flowing back and forth without effort. Think of the way light travels downward, filtered through layers of water until it arrives as a softened glow. Never harsh, never blinding, just a calm shimmer across the quiet beams. And in that soft shimmer, you may notice how details blur, how the exactness of edges dissolves, how everything finds its place in a larger calm, and your own thoughts may follow, drifting out, loosening, becoming part of the wider stillness. Everything is steady tonight. Around the wreck, small schools of fish move slowly, never in a rush, weaving gently through open doorways, past the slant of a mast, around the hush of the deck. And their motion is like a reminder of how steady the sea can be, how gentle the world becomes when there is no need for urgency. The sand lies in soft ripples beneath, a quilt spread by the movement of water, textured but quiet, patterned but still, and you can rest your imagination there, letting each ripple be like a breath, each curve like a pause, each wave of sand like the weight of a blanket over you. Think again of the wooden planks, smoothed by time, where once there were sharp corners, now there are softened shapes, as though the sea has wrapped everything in patience, and that same patience can wrap you as well. Everything is steady tonight. In this place, the ship does not move, yet it belongs to motion, to the currents that drift past and around, carrying silt, carrying small creatures, carrying strands of seaweed that brush and sway with no hurry at all. To imagine this is to imagine yourself free of effort, carried in the same way, held by the same calm. No need to hold on tightly, no need to resist, only to rest. The idea repeats because the sea repeats, the waves repeat, the light repeats, and in their repetition you find quiet comfort, the way the same thought can return like a lullaby, like a rocking motion that soothes you into sleep. Everything is steady tonight. You might picture the sounds here, not loud, not startling, but hushed, muted by the depth, softened until all that remains is a sense of muffled calm, as though even sound has learned to rest. And that quiet wraps you as surely as water wraps the ship. The shipwreck, sleeping quietly under the sea, is more than an image. It is a rhythm, a place of return, and as we return to it again and again, you may find your own body settling deeper, softer, into the night. Everything is steady tonight. The beams are softened. The water is still. The light is filtered. The sand is rippled. The fish are slow. The sea is wide. And in this list of calm details, you may notice how every element supports rest. Every element speaks of ease, and you are welcome to linger as long as you wish. Everything is steady tonight. In this cycle of thought, nothing is hurried. Nothing is demanded. Nothing is asked of you but to rest, to notice, to allow, and as you do, the shipwreck remains, a quiet anchor beneath the sea, an image that holds stillness, a story told without words, repeated softly until sleep finds you. Everything is steady tonight. The shipwreck, sleeping quietly under the sea, rests as a gentle anchor for our thoughts. And now we move through its stillness with another layer of calm, adding not new urgency, but softer detail. The kind of detail that deepens rest without pressing for attention, like adding a second blanket on a cool night, or letting an extra breath lengthen the space between each moment. The ship lies where it has lain for so many years, its beams and masts shaped by the water, its edges rounded, its surfaces softened, every part of it belonging more to the sea than to its own past. And when we speak of it now, we speak not of travel or voyages, but of settling, of resting, of being at home in silence. Everything is steady tonight. If you picture the sea around it, you might notice how currents pass without haste, how particles of sand lift and then settle again, how strands of seaweed sway with patient rhythm, how small creatures drift in and out of shadows, how the whole environment seems to breathe in slow cycles, expanding and contracting in patterns that echo your own breath. Each of these 5 details, the sand, the seaweed, the shadows, the creatures, the currents, becomes a part of the scene, and each carries its own softness, its own way of saying that time has no urgency here. Everything is steady tonight. Think again of the light filtering down, not as one being, but as many, shifting with the surface above, moving like liquid lace across the hull, across the open decks, across the quiet masts, until every part of the wreck holds its own shimmer. A shimmer that is never still, but never hurried, always changing, but always calm. As you imagine this, let the same quality enter your own thoughts, the sense of being touched by light that is gentle, steady, endlessly patient. A light that does not push, but simply arrives, spreading comfort. Everything is steady tonight. The ship itself, once held together by iron and rope, now rests as part of the seabed, its lines blurring into the sand, its weight no longer burdened, its shape embraced fully by the depth. Around it, silence hums softly, not empty, not sharp, but full of presence, like the hush of a quiet room at night, with the stillness of a meadow under snow. And in this hush, you may sense how deeply rest can settle, how fully quiet can hold. Everything is steady tonight, and if your mind wanders, it may wander in circles, returning again and again to the same images: the softened wood, the rippled sand, the slow fish, the gentle beams of light. Each return becoming more familiar, more comforting, like hearing a lullaby repeated, like rocking in a chair until you no longer notice the motion. Everything is steady tonight. The shipwreck, sleeping quietly under the sea, remains in its place, not changing quickly, not demanding attention, but offering layer after layer of calm, a steady presence that can hold your imagination the way the sea holds its form, without rush, without resistance, without end. Everything is steady tonight. The shipwreck, sleeping quietly under the sea, is a circle we return to again and again, and in returning, the image softens, deepens, and becomes less about the wreck itself and more about the feeling it creates, the way stillness gathers around it, like quiet light gathering at dusk, gentle, unhurried, and without demand. At this point in the night, you may notice how repetition becomes a comfort, how the same thoughts rise and fall like tides, familiar, predictable, steady, until the rhythm itself becomes part of rest, until the cycle feels like a lullaby with no beginning and no end. Everything is steady tonight. The ship rests on sand shaped by centuries of currents, the grains arranged into slow ripples, each ripple like a line of breath, each crest like an inhale, each hollow like an exhale, a pattern that repeats with perfect patience. Above, light filters in pale shafts, never still, yet never urgent, touching the beams, touching the decks, touching the quiet spaces within, until all is suffused with a shimmer so calm that it seems more like memory than brightness. Everything is steady tonight. Around the wreck, the sea is wide, the currents are soft. The fish move in unhurried circles, the seaweed drifts, the shadows sway, and every element participates in the same rhythm of calm, each one repeating, each one steady. Imagine yourself drifting in this scene, not as a visitor with tasks or goals, but as part of the water itself, floating with the same patience, carried with the same ease, wrapped in the same soft embrace. Everything is steady tonight, and if your thoughts wander away, let them, for wandering is part of rest. And just as the currents wander around the ship, so too can your mind drift, circle, and return, always returning to the quiet anchor beneath the waves, always returning to stillness. Everything is steady tonight. The shipwreck, sleeping quietly under the sea, has no hurry, no urgency, no unfinished work, only the patience of years, the gentleness of depth, the softness of sand, the the calm of water, and in letting your imagination rest here, you give yourself the same gift, the same quiet, the same endless ease. Everything is steady tonight, and as you move toward the end of this night's story, let the repetition become slower. Let the details blur into one another until the ship, the sand, the beams of light, the slow fish, the drifting seaweed, all fold together into one single calm presence. The presence of the sea holding the wreck, the presence of night holding you, the presence of rest holding everything. Everything is steady tonight. In this soft conclusion, there is no final word, only quiet, only the comfort of being here, wrapped in steady calm, until sleep arrives in its own time, as naturally as the tide returns to shore. Everything is steady tonight. Good night.